Rachel Bennett stood in the middle of the courtroom, mop still in hand, as the entire room fell into deathly silence. "I will defend her," she said, with a trembling voice, mixing fear and determination. Her calloused fingers tightened around the mop handle as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. At the defense table sat Ariana Whitmore, the billionaire whose own lawyer had just abandoned her. She lifted her head and looked at her with total disbelief. Neither of them knew that this simple moment would mark the beginning of the unraveling of one of the darkest conspiracies in American corporate history. Before we dive into this moving story of justice, courage, and rebirth, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe that anyone, whether a proud billionaire or a discreet janitor, deserves to be treated with justice before the law, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stories about silent heroes like Rachel deserve to be told, and you won't want to miss them. Let's see now what led a forgotten legal genius to rebel against the very system that once destroyed her life. But before everything began to change, what do you think made Rachel, someone who had lost almost everything, emerge from the shadows at that exact moment? The autumn sunlight of New York filtered through the tall windows of the Federal Court of Manhattan, casting rays of light over the marble floor that Rachel Bennett had just cleaned. At 5 a.m, like every day for the last 15 years, she was already there. A 45-year-old woman with brown hair beginning to gray, deep brown eyes, wearing a navy blue uniform with the word "maintenance" embroidered on the breast pocket. The tiny apartment in the Bronx was still completely dark when she left at 4 a.m. The room had only a single bed, a small kitchen, and a bare wall adorned with a single photo, the image of her wedding to Jennifer, from 17 years ago, before cancer took away the woman she loved. Next to it was a photo of their daughter, Maya, now 20 years old and in her last year of college, though in the photo she was only 5, smiling radiantly in her mother's arms. Rachel didn't turn on the lights when she left home. The electricity bills in winter were high. Even with a salary of $2,800 a month, every penny counted. Breakfast was just black coffee and toast. Food she took from the cafeteria in the courthouse basement, a small privilege for the maintenance staff. That morning, as she pushed her cleaning cart down the third-floor hallway, Rachel stopped in front of courtroom 302, which she considered the venue for the biggest cases. And today, one of the most important legal battles in New York history was about to begin. The lawsuit against Ariana Whitmore, the tech billionaire with a fortune of $14 billion. She hadn't learned about the case from the news. She didn't have a television. But from the nights she spent cleaning that same courthouse, she had seen the refined lawyers, heard the things they said when they thought no one was listening. The janitor was like an invisible piece of furniture, unimportant to their appearance. But Rachel hadn't always been invisible. 15 years ago, she was one of the rising stars at Whitfield and Associates, a prestigious law firm in Manhattan. She had a corner office overlooking Central Park, a reputation for never losing an important case, and a bright future. Until everything collapsed. She pushed away the memories. That was the past. Now she mopped floors, polished benches, collected trash, an honest job that paid the rent, and occasionally allowed her to send some money to Maya, though she always refused to accept it. Rachel was about to leave the courthouse when her phone vibrated with a message from the supervisor. "Bennett, courtroom 302 needs additional cleaning. Today. VIP." Rachel exhaled a sigh. VIP meant pressure inspections and countless opportunities to get scolded for the slightest mistake. But as always, she didn't complain. At 9 a.m, the courthouse was packed. Reporters squeezed in to enter. Lawyers adjusted their ties. Keyboards typed furiously. At the defense table, Ariana Whitmore sat alone. She was 38 years old, but seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her blue eyes, once so penetrating, were now clouded with exhaustion. Her Armani suit was impeccable, but her slightly hunched shoulders and tightly clenched hands betrayed the tension consuming her. Next to her were 6 empty chairs. The seats reserved for her legal team from Preston, Holloway, and Schmidt, the most expensive law firm in New York, charging $8,000 an hour. But they didn't show up. Rachel looked at the clock. 9:15. The trial would begin in 15 minutes. Ariana kept calling, and each time she hung up, her face grew paler. Rachel knew they wouldn't come. They had abandoned her. "All rise," announced the bailiff. Judge Caroline Fisher entered with a stern, cold, and experienced expression. She paused when her eyes landed on the empty chairs. "Miss Whitmore, where is your legal team?" Ariana stood up, trying to maintain composure, but her voice trembled. "I don't know, Your Honor. They were here yesterday. I tried to contact them all morning, but no one answered." The prosecutor, Catherine Morrison, showed a slight triumphant smile. "Your Honor, it's evident that the defense has been abandoned. We request, therefore, a default judgment." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Reporters typed frantically. Judge Fisher sighed. "If you don't have legal representation, the court cannot postpone indefinitely. I am obligated to... I will defend her." The deep, warm voice echoed through the room like thunder. Everyone turned. Rachel Bennett stood next to her cleaning cart, mop still in hand. The lights reflected off her graying hair, and her face marked by 15 years of endurance, now illuminated by determination. Soft giggles erupted first, then louder. But she didn't flinch. Rachel dropped the mop and walked down the aisle. 2 decades of mopping floors couldn't erase the posture of a lawyer who once won important cases in this very room. Judge Fisher raised an eyebrow. "Who are you?" "My name is Rachel Bennett, Your Honor. I would like to represent Miss Whitmore." Catherine Morrison let out a mocking laugh. "A janitor wants to be a lawyer?" Rachel met her gaze. "I was a member of the New York Bar for 18 years. A wave of whispers spread through the room. Rachel took out her worn wallet from her pocket and presented her old lawyer's license, still valid. The judge examined it, her face paling slightly. "Mrs. Bennett, how long have you not practiced?" 15 years, Your Honor." The air grew heavier. "And do you believe you're still competent?" "Your Honor, this woman deserves to be defended. I know the law, I know the procedure, and I understand what justice means." Ariana stood up and looked into her eyes. She didn't see desperation or ambition, but sincerity. The kind that a legal team earning $8,000 an hour could never offer. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "I accept Mrs. Bennett." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Fisher rubbed her temples. "You have 15 minutes to talk with your client, and don't delay the process." Rachel approached the defense table but was stopped by security. "Sorry, only lawyers allowed in this area." Rachel extended her credential. The judge nodded, confirming. The guard stepped aside awkwardly. When she sat down, Rachel felt all eyes fixed on them, but she only looked at Ariana. "Something is very wrong here," she whispered. "It's not just about your lawyers abandoning you. Everything is orchestrated." Ariana whispered back. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen thousands of cases over the last 15 years. This one isn't natural. Then who's behind it?" "We'll find out. But first, I need to hear everything." Ariana looked at this woman she passed by every day without noticing. The woman who defended her when no one else did. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she had found the right person. 15 minutes passed like 15 seconds. Ariana spoke almost nonstop, trying to condense 3 months of legal preparation into an emergency briefing. She explained her technology, a quantum processor that operated at room temperature, an innovation capable of changing everything from computing to energy production. She told her about Nexus Innovations, the company accusing her of stealing their technology. And she told her about the 3 months of hell since the allegations came to light. the vertiginous drop in stocks, the press surrounding the case, partners turning their backs. Rachel listened without taking notes. She didn't just hear every word. She absorbed the pauses, the moments when her voice failed. Her deep brown eyes never strayed from Ariana's face. She noticed that Rachel was doing more than simply listening to the content. She was reading the tension in her voice, the hesitation when mentioning certain details, and the absolute certainty when she spoke about the technology she had created. "Time's up," announced the bailiff. Judge Fisher struck the gavel. "Mrs. Bennett, prepare for your opening statement." Rachel stood up and walked to the podium, feeling the full weight of every gaze in the room. Some skeptical, others curious, some even condescending. How many years had passed since the last time she was there? How many nights had she spent awake in her small Bronx apartment, dreaming of a moment like this, only to wake up again with a mop in hand? She placed her hand on the podium, feeling the smooth wood under her palm. She took a deep breath, lifted her head, and looked directly at the 12 faces in the jury box. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, with a calm, clear voice. "My name is Rachel Bennett. First, I apologize for my appearance. I'm not wearing an expensive suit like my colleague on the other side of the aisle. I didn't have a luxurious office or a team of assistants. Less than an hour ago, I was still cleaning the floor of this courthouse." A soft laugh echoed from the back. Rachel heard it clearly, but didn't hesitate. "And for 15 years, I've been in this room every day, watching justice unfold. I saw truth triumph, and I saw truth be buried. I learned that justice doesn't depend on the price of your lawsuit or the name of the law firm you hire. It's based on something much simpler, the truth." She paused, letting the words settle. "The truth in this case is simple. Ariana Whitmore didn't steal anything. She created revolutionary technology through her own intellect, hard work, and talent. Those who really want to seize this technology are using the legal system as a weapon." Catherine Morrison jumped up. "Objection! She's arguing, not making an opening statement." Judge Fisher sustained the decision. "Mrs. Bennett, stick to the facts." Rachel nodded. "I apologize, Your Honor. I'll let the evidence speak for itself, and I promise you only this. At the end of this trial, it will be unequivocally clear who is telling the truth and who is lying." She sat down. It wasn't a polished opening. It wasn't adorned with dazzling rhetoric, but it was sincere. As shown by the discreet nods from some jury members, Rachel knew that at least someone was really listening. The rest of the morning passed like a confusing nightmare. The prosecution called their first witness, a technology analyst who claimed that Ariana's design was too similar to be mere coincidence. When it was time for cross-examination, Rachel stood up, feeling every muscle in her body tense. 15 years since the last time she did this. 15 years since the last time she faced a witness, unraveling the details one by one, looking for the smallest inconsistencies to dismantle the big picture. But when she opened her mouth, something strange happened. The words returned naturally. The questions flowed into each other, as if she had never left the profession. She guided the witness through overlapping details, incompatible timelines, and technical records that the witness claimed to have seen but had no reasonable access to. And as the contradictions began to emerge, Rachel felt something awaken inside her, something she had buried for 15 years, the woman she used to be, the lawyer. At the end of the day's session, Judge Fisher looked at Rachel with a different expression, one with a touch of reluctant respect. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, "perhaps you'll want a proper suit for tomorrow." Rachel nodded. "I'll take care of that, Your Honor." But leaving the courthouse, she knew the truth. She didn't have money to buy a new suit. The only suit she owned was moldy in her closet for more than a decade and now hung loosely on her after years of manual labor. Ariana caught up with her in the hallway. "Mrs. Bennett," she called. This time Rachel turned and looked at her, not as an important client, not as a billionaire on magazine covers, but as a human being clinging to her last thread of hope. She was taller than expected, displaying the confident posture that money could buy. But in those penetrating blue eyes there was fear. Something money couldn't hide. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know why you're doing this, but thank you." Rachel shook her head. "Don't thank me yet. We've barely begun, and we need to talk seriously. I need to see all documents related to this case. Emails, notes, schematics. If we're going to fight, I need to know everything." Ariana nodded. "Come to my house tonight. I keep everything there." Rachel responded, "I have a work shift tonight." Ariana frowned. "But you're my lawyer." "I'm also a janitor, and I need to pay rent," Rachel said calmly. "The court isn't paying me to defend you, Miss Whitmore. This is pro bono, free. Which means I need to work if I don't want to be fired." For the first time, Ariana truly felt the distance between her world and hers. For Ariana, paying $8,000 an hour to lawyers had been normal. For this woman, missing a single shift could mean not having enough to pay rent. "I'll pay you," she said immediately. "No," Rachel responded firmly. "If it were for money, I wouldn't be here today. I'm not doing this for prestige or compensation. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do." She paused and added softly, "But I'll come after my shift ends, at midnight." "Too late for you?" "Midnight is perfect," said Ariana. And somewhere deep inside themselves, both understood that the real battle was just beginning. At midnight, Rachel parked the old Toyota in front of the gate of Ariana's mansion in Westchester, still wearing her janitor's uniform that carried the persistent odor of cleaning chemicals from her 8-hour shift. She hadn't had time to go home and change clothes, and the truth showed in every drop of dried sweat on her shoulders. This time, the gate guard had been warned to expect her. But the way the man looked at Rachel's car said it all. She didn't belong in that place. Upon entering through the front door, another security agent accompanied her, not to help her, but to ensure she didn't enter restricted areas. Ariana awaited her in her office, still in the suit she wore in court, though she had removed the jacket. She looked exhausted in a way that not even sleep could resolve. "Coffee?" she asked. This time, Rachel nodded. She needed the caffeine to stay alert. Ariana served her a cup of espresso from a machine that cost more than her monthly rent. The taste was rich, smooth, different from the instant coffee she drank every morning. "All right," said Rachel, putting the cup on the table. "Tell me the real story, not the version you told your lawyers, not the version for the media, the truth." Ariana remained seated, her gaze fixed on her coffee cup, as if it contained the answers she was afraid to face. "I founded Quantum Corp 12 years ago," she said, her voice softening as memories pulled her back. "I was just a recent MIT graduate, obsessed with quantum computing. Everyone told me that stable quantum processing at room temperature was impossible. Qubits degrade too quickly, they said. Only in multi-million-dollar laboratories and extreme cooling systems could achieve anything close to that." Ariana's eyes sparkled when she spoke about her work. The first time Rachel saw the real woman beneath the armor of wealth and prestige. "But I had an idea. What if, instead of fighting degradation, we used it? What if the instability itself became part of the calculation?" She gave a little laugh, not sure if it was pride or bitterness. "They called me crazy. My professor said I was wasting my time." "But you proved them wrong," said Rachel. Ariana nodded slightly. 6 years working in a tiny apartment, living on student loans, no funding, no laboratory, just me and my laptop. She opened a safe hidden behind a painting and took out a thin folder. She handed it to Rachel. "All my original research notes, dated and notarized. Everything proves I developed this technology before Nexus was even founded." Rachel opened the folder. Inside were hundreds of pages with equations, diagrams, handwritten notes. Raw, vivid, undeniable. "Why didn't your previous lawyers mention this?" she asked. "They said it wasn't necessary," Ariana responded, her voice heavy with fatigue. They said they had a better strategy. Rachel closed the folder with a snap, gritting her teeth. Not presenting your most important evidence isn't a strategy. It's sabotage. Ariana's face paled. You mean? I mean your lawyers were paid to lose, Rachel said bluntly. The only question now is, who paid them? They worked until 3 a.m, analyzing every email, memo, and schematic. The deeper the investigation went, the clearer the pattern became. Crucial evidence was ignored. Key witnesses were never called. Objections were made at inopportune moments, an almost deliberately suicidal defense strategy. Ariana's former legal team wasn't incompetent. They were actively sabotaging her. Is there something you haven't told me? Rachel asked. Something strange that happened in the last few months? Ariana hesitated. There is one thing. Julia Foster, my assistant, copied files to a flash drive. Rachel narrowed her eyes. And you didn't question her? I trusted her. Julia has been with me for 5 years. In cases like this, Rachel said slowly, nothing is accidental. If she copied data, someone incited her to do it. She looked at Ariana with a firm voice. Tomorrow, no matter what I say or ask in court, you must not react. No surprises. Don't correct me. Everything is already part of the plan. Why? Because we're being watched, Rachel responded. Maybe not at this exact moment, but somewhere, somehow, and all the plans we make assume the enemy already knows. A chill ran down Ariana's spine. You've been through this before, haven't you? Rachel remained silent for so long that Ariana thought she wouldn't answer. Then, without fanfare, she said, 15 years ago, I filed a lawsuit against Atlantic Energy Corporation. An engineer reported hidden irregularities in safety standards. 3 workers died. I had enough evidence. But before the trial, the evidence disappeared from my office. Ariana held her breath. Rachel continued. They said I made it all up. That I forged documents to harm the company. I was suspended and then expelled from the bar. It took me 4 years to prove my innocence. 4 years working temporary jobs. 4 years watching my daughter grow up without her mother's full presence. They destroyed you, Ariana whispered. They tried, Rachel corrected. But they didn't take the only thing that mattered, my knowledge of the law. And that's something they'll never take from me. When Rachel left at 4 a.m, the sky was still stained dark, like spilled ink. Ariana stood by the window, watching the glow of her car dissipate down the long road. She realized it wasn't the first time she felt alone in this fight. But for the first time in months, in that darkness, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The next morning, Rachel entered the courthouse wearing the suit she had bought at a thrift store the night before. It wasn't new, it wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, impeccable, and presentable. She could barely afford the $35 it cost. Judge Fisher was right. Today she needed to look like a real lawyer. The courthouse was packed. The story of the janitor who became a lawyer had spread throughout the city, reporters squeezed into every available space. When Rachel entered, some people even applauded. Hesitant, uncertain, divided between applauding and mocking. She ignored everything. She focused on the only thing that mattered, the truth. Catherine Morrison was ready. An elegant burgundy suit, square shoulders, penetrating eyes. The expression of someone who believed the verdict was already hers. The prosecution calls Dr. Leonard Bryson, she announced. Dr. Bryson took the witness stand. He was a man in his 50s, wearing metal-framed glasses, with the polished posture of an academic. For almost 20 minutes, Morrison let him build a narrative in which he had developed the core algorithms of quantum technology, and Ariana had stolen the credits. The quantum core, he said, is where the idea really began. Rachel remained motionless, taking notes, her expression indecipherable. But inside she was assembling the puzzle. the deadlines, the allegations, the inconsistencies. None of this aligned. When it was her turn, Rachel stood up slowly. She carried a thin folder. She walked to the podium with such firm calm that it silenced the room. "Dr. Bryson," she began with a soft but firm voice, "you testified that you developed the quantum core algorithms from January to March 2021. Is that correct?" "Yes, that's right." "Then please help me clarify something." Rachel picked up the first document. "This is your employment record at Quantum Corp. Could you read the start date of your trial?" Bryson looked down. His face paled. "April 21st, 2021. "I'm sorry," Rachel said softly. "I didn't hear you." "April 21, he repeated louder, his voice trembling. Rachel turned to the jury. "Therefore, you couldn't have developed algorithms between January and March because you weren't yet employed." A shockwave spread through the courtroom. Rachel raised a second document. "And here are the quantum core server records, which show that the core algorithms were completed on March 15th, 2021. More than a month before you were hired. Would you like to explain how you contributed to a project that already existed before you could do so?" Morrison jumped up. "Objection. The prosecution has not received this document." "Your Honor," Rachel said calmly, "this data came directly from Quantum Corp's system. If they didn't analyze the available evidence, that's not my fault." "Objection overruled," said Judge Fisher. "Proceed." Bryson's hands began to tremble. Rachel fixed her gaze on him. "Dr. Bryson, one last question. Did you receive a payment of $300,000 from Nexus Innovations 2 weeks before testifying here today?" Bryson froze. "It's a yes or no question, Doctor. I was compensated for my time and knowledge." $300,000 for false testimony," Rachel said, her voice sharp as steel. "Seems more like a bribe than compensation." The room exploded in uproar. Rachel turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I request the presentation of evidence regarding this transaction and that the witness be charged with perjury." Gasps of astonishment, furious murmurs, reporters typing frantically. The courtroom seemed to have exploded, and for the first time since the trial began, Rachel saw something she was waiting for. Fear in Catherine Morrison's eyes. Something they never imagined, that a janitor would know how to completely dismantle their case. After the hearing, Rachel and Ariana left the courthouse amid a forest of cameras and microphones. Reporters shouted questions from all directions. Flashes emerged like lightning in a storm. Rachel lowered her head, lightly placing her hand on Ariana's back, skillfully guiding her through the chaotic crowd. Only when the taxi door closed, muffling the noise, did Ariana finally take a deep breath. "How did you know about the payment to Bryson?" she asked, still shaken. Rachel opened her old canvas briefcase. It wasn't leather, but the kind she had bought at a thrift store. "I wasn't sure," she said calmly. "But in cases like this, money always leaves a trail. I imagined it, and his look confirmed it." "You bluffed," said Ariana, genuinely surprised. "Almost." Rachel shrugged slightly. "But after I saw his reaction, I asked someone to check again." She picked up her phone and began reading messages from her daughter Maya. "She works in digital marketing, but her ability to discover information is remarkable. Since I told her about this case, she's been investigating." Her phone vibrated with a new message from Maya. "Mom, I found something important. Call me." Rachel looked up and turned to Ariana. "We need to see my daughter. Right now." An hour later, they were sitting in a small cafe in the Bronx, a place as strange to Ariana as another planet. The cafe was cramped, the plastic chairs creaked, and the smell of cheap coffee mixed with old frying oil. But most importantly, it was a private meeting. No reporters, no cameras, no lawyers. Maya Bennett entered. Rachel stood up abruptly, awkward like a mother unsure if she still had the right to hug her daughter. Maya resolved the question first. She stepped forward and hugged her. A quick hug, a bit hesitant, but true. She was 20 years old, with long brown hair and eyes like her mother's. Jeans and a simple t-shirt, but carrying an expensive laptop and the confident posture of someone who knew her worth. "Mom," she said, turning to Ariana. "And you must be Ariana Whitmore. I'm Maya." They shook hands. Ariana couldn't help but notice the contrast. Her well-cared-for hands, softened by luxury skin products, facing Maya's calloused, worked hands. A young woman who built her own life from scratch. Maya opened her laptop. "Okay. At first, I wasn't sure what my mom wanted me to look for, so I started with Nexus Innovations. At first glance, they're impeccable, a venture capital-funded tech startup with a very clean corporate history." She scrolled through a series of documents, but when I investigated the ownership structure, things got weird. Nexus belongs to a shell company in Delaware, which in turn belongs to another company in the Cayman Islands. She paused. "And that company belongs to Atlantic Energy Corporation." Rachel froze. "Atlantic Energy," she repeated. "You know them?" Maya asked. "Oh, yes," Rachel responded quietly. "That's the company that destroyed my career 15 years ago." Maya stared at her, eyes wide. They had never spoken openly about it, about what happened, about who was behind it. "It was them all along," she whispered. Ariana leaned forward. "But why would an energy company care about my technology?" "At first, I didn't understand either," Maya said. "But then I read more about your technology." She turned the laptop so both Ariana and Rachel could see. "It's not just about computing. If it's possible to stabilize qubits at room temperature, the energy applications you mentioned in a scientific article are revolutionary." She pointed to a highlighted section. "An MIT professor wrote that your technology could revolutionize energy storage and conversion. This could make fossil fuels obsolete in 20 years. 20 years, Ariana repeated, each word heavier than the last. "And Atlantic Energy makes $28 billion a year from coal, oil, and gas," Maya concluded. "If your technology works as published, they don't lose profit. They lose their entire empire." Rachel leaned back, as if the pieces had finally fallen into place. "That's why they didn't try to buy you or compete with you," she said slowly. "They needed to eliminate you, erase your technology, erase your credibility. But more than that," Maya continued, "I kept researching and discovered that Atlantic Energy has ties to 4 other major energy conglomerates, 2 defense contractors, and..." She paused again. 3 sitting members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Maya presented more documents and images, campaign contributions, fundraising dinners, luxury trips. They built a network, and when your technology came to light, they activated that entire network. "And the lawyers?" Ariana asked, her voice choked. "How did they—" "I'm still investigating," Maya said, "but the managing partner at Preston Holloway and Schmidt is on the board of directors of an Atlantic Energy subsidiary. This information isn't easy to find, but it's there, if you know where to look." Rachel stood up and began pacing in the cramped cafe, her mind working as fast as Maya's words. "So this isn't just a lawsuit," she stated. "This is a coordinated campaign to pave the way for a trillion-dollar industry." "And they won't stop," said Ariana, fear now clearly visible in her eyes. "If they did this to you 15 years ago, if they're capable of manipulating things to this extent." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. All 3 understood. Maya's phone vibrated. She glanced at it, and her face paled. "It's my old boss. I don't need to return to the office. My belongings will be mailed." "They fired you?" Ariana asked. "On paper, my position was eliminated," Maya said bitterly. "But the timing says it all." Rachel put her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "I'm sorry, Maya. I never wanted to involve you in this." Maya looked up, her eyes firmer than before. "You didn't involve me in anything. I chose this." And now that I'm in, I'm going to help you fight." For the first time in years, Rachel no longer saw Maya as the child who had lost her mother, nor as the adult woman she had missed for so many years. She saw something more. An ally. A partner. "Sure," she said, exhaling as if sealing a decision. "Then we do this together." In the days that followed, the threats stopped being a vague feeling and became clear, sharp, dangerously real signals. Rachel's small apartment in the Bronx was broken into. Nothing was stolen. There was nothing of value to take, but everything was destroyed. The closet was ripped open. Drawers were dumped on the floor. The mattress was torn with a long, deep cut, as if someone wanted to send a message. "We know where you live." Maya's laptop was hacked. Fortunately, she had backed up all her data on an encrypted cloud server. But the fact that someone had intentionally invaded her device, and done so brazenly, caused chills. Then, one night, when Ariana was leaving the office late, a black SUV ran a red light and accelerated directly toward her car. The driver swerved in time. The car spun, hitting a pole to avoid a head-on collision. Ariana escaped with only scratches and bruises, but the message was carved in stone. She was a target. During an emergency meeting at Ariana's mansion the next morning, she said clearly, "Rachel, Maya, you need to leave your apartment. You both need to move here, where I have real security." "We can't just live in your house like this," Rachel began, visibly uncomfortable. "I don't want to owe you anything more." "This isn't a favor," Ariana interrupted, firm. "This is a defensive strategy. They're attacking us individually. If we stay together, with professional security, we're safer." Maya put her hand on her mother's arm. "She's right, Mom. How am I going to work if I'm worried every night that someone's going to break in?" Rachel reluctantly agreed. That afternoon, they moved into the guest house on Ariana's property. A separate, smaller building, but still larger than any place Rachel had ever lived. While Maya explored the rooms enthusiastically, Rachel remained in the living room, her back straight, but her hands unconsciously clenched. The high ceiling, designer furniture, expensive paintings on the walls. All of this made her feel like an ink stain on a perfect canvas. She looked through the glass doors to the meticulously maintained garden. It was hard to believe that just 48 hours before, she had been in an apartment so small that one person could barely turn around. Ariana entered the room and stopped beside her. "You're uncomfortable," she observed without needing to ask. "I lived 15 years in a small apartment," Rachel said quietly. "And this isn't my world." Ariana stood next to Rachel for a long moment, as if giving her time to breathe in that unfamiliar space. Then she spoke softly. "Maybe the world should be yours. You have talent and strength, Mrs. Bennett. You could be in a place like this, or even better, if they hadn't taken everything from you." Rachel turned to her, and for the first time since they met in the courtroom, she truly looked at Ariana. Not as a client, not as a billionaire, but as a woman fighting for justice beside her. Her blue eyes, though tired, shone with something rare, genuine respect. "I don't need any of this," Rachel responded with a firm voice. "I never wanted wealth. I want justice. I want to help people who have no voice. And after all these years, I finally have the chance to do it again." "By helping me," Ariana said, "you fight against those who believe money and power are everything, that they place them above the law." Rachel nodded. "Exactly." They remained silent in the spacious living room, the afternoon sunlight filtering softly through the large glass wall. The distance between their worlds. A janitor who was once a lawyer and a billionaire founder of a tech company was still there. But at that moment, it didn't seem as impossible as before. Something had changed. Not because of what they said, but because they were side by side, facing a common enemy. And in that silence, both knew the real battle was just beginning. The next big victory came from a place no one could have imagined. At 2 a.m, Julia Foster, Ariana's longtime friend, appeared at the gate with a pale face and disheveled clothes, her hair messy, as if she had spent all night in the wind. Security immediately informed Ariana, and she rushed to wake Rachel. They found Julia in a small room separated from the main house, a security measure in case it was a trap. Julia almost fainted when she saw Ariana. Her makeup was smeared with tears. Her hands trembled violently. "I'm sorry," she said all at once. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" Ariana asked, her voice cutting like steel. Julia took a deep breath. "For everything. For copying files. For passing information to them. For staying silent when I knew what they were doing to you." "Who are they?" Rachel asked. "Gregory Vance," Julia responded with a hoarse voice. "The CEO of Nexus Innovations. He came to see me 6 months ago. He knew about my mistake." "What mistake?" Ariana asked. Julia looked at her own hands, too ashamed to lift her head. 10 years ago, before I worked for you, I worked at another company. I embezzled $50,000. It's not much, but it's still a crime. I returned the money and the company didn't call the police. I thought it was over. But Vance found out. "He blackmailed you," Rachel said. Julia nodded, tears falling again. "He had documents, emails, bank statements, everything. He told me that if I didn't help him, he would report me, and I would go to prison." "So you chose to help him," Ariana said flatly. "I copied the data. I told him your strategies. Julia got emotional. "I even inserted false information into some files to make it look like you had accessed Nexus research." "Fabricated evidence," Rachel said darkly. "Exactly what they did to me." "But why did you come here now?" Ariana asked, her gaze icy, but with a touch of pity. Julia took out a phone that wasn't hers, a state-of-the-art model completely out of place. Rachel immediately recognized it wasn't Julia's personal phone. "Today," Julia said, her hands shaking, "I overheard a phone conversation with Vance. He told someone about a permanent solution in case the legal route failed." She swallowed. "They were talking about killing you, Ariana." Suddenly the room became ice cold. "I know what I did was wrong. I know I betrayed you," Julia continued, her voice choked. "But I can't live with this. Not with murder." She handed the phone to Rachel. "This is Vance's phone. I took it from his office. It has everything. Messages, emails, call recordings, the entire conspiracy." Rachel took the phone, feeling as if she were holding a grenade with the pin pulled. "This could end the case, or end us. If they notice she took it, they'll know," Maya said from the doorway, having arrived without anyone noticing. Julia whispered, "Vance will look for the phone in the morning, if not before. He'll realize it's missing. That's why I came straight here." Ariana stared at Julia for a long moment. This woman had been by her side for 5 years, after stressful meetings, fundraising rounds, sleepless nights. And now it was she who had stabbed her in the back. But in those tear-filled eyes before her, Ariana saw not just fear. She saw remorse, real and deep. "You risked your own safety to come here," Ariana said, her voice softening for the first time. "I owe you much more than that," Julia responded, trembling. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. You trusted me and I betrayed you. This is the least I can do." Rachel didn't hesitate. "We need to copy all the data from this phone immediately. Maya, can you do it?" "Give me 15 minutes, Maya said, already opening the laptop. While Maya worked, Rachel asked Julia, "You know they'll come looking for you, right?" Julia nodded. "I know. You need to disappear, at least until the case is over." "I have a sister in Canada," Julia said. "I can go there." "Go now," Rachel said firmly. "Don't go home. Don't pack. Go straight there." 20 minutes later, all the data had been safely copied to Maya's encrypted server. In the darkness, Julia took a taxi, never looking back. Rachel watched the car until the taillights disappeared, questioning whether they had done right to trust her, and if she would survive the night. Ariana stood beside her, her voice soft but firm. She really is sorry. Apologies don't erase the damage, Rachel said bluntly. No, Ariana agreed, but courage can redeem things. She knew they would retaliate and still came here. Rachel took a deep breath, her jaw clenched with iron determination. Now we have to use what she gave us. And we need to act fast, because as soon as they realize we have this evidence. She looked at the phone in her hand. Concrete proof of a gigantic conspiracy. They'll come with everything they have. They didn't have to wait long. The next morning, as Rachel, Maya, and Ariana reviewed all the evidence on Gregory Vance's phone, the property's security alarms went off abruptly. The security director reported through the intercom system at the main gate. Multiple armed individuals. Get Miss Whitmore down now. Ariana dropped to the floor. Rachel and Maya followed her. They locked down the entire property and called the police. But as the security screens changed angles, the truth became unmistakable. 6 people in tactical uniforms, fully equipped, moved through the property with the precision of people who had clearly received military training. They're not cops, Rachel said, lowering her voice. Mercenaries. Maddox, the head of security, said, ex-military or private contractors. They know exactly what they're doing. We have to get out of here, Maya panicked. But the cameras showed 2 more vehicles blocking the rear exit. There was no escape route. Maddox, a former New York cop and now Ariana's head of security, made a decision immediately. To the safe room. Move now. He led them through the house to the basement, unlocking a steel door hidden behind a wine cabinet. It led to a small panic room. Reinforced concrete walls, surveillance monitors, and a direct line to 911. You'll be safe in here. This door resists explosives, Maddox said. My team and I will hold them off as long as we can. Police are on the way. How long? Ariana asked. Most optimistic estimate is 15 minutes. We just need to survive 15 minutes, Maddox responded. The door closed behind them with a cold, metallic snap. Inside the panic room, the 3 faced the surveillance screens. The mercenaries moved like shadows. Silent, methodical, each step calculated. Maddox and the 4 guards under his command were already in defensive positions. They're going to die, Maya whispered, her hands trembling. Those men are outnumbered and outgunned. Maddox knows how to fight, Ariana said, trying to sound firm, but her voice trembled. Then the shooting began. On the monitors, the battle unfolded like a soundless nightmare. Maddox and his team fought bravely, taking advantage of every hallway and blind spot. The intruders were professionals who moved with impeccable formation. 1 guard fell. 1 mercenary was taken down, but the attackers kept advancing. They're heading to the basement, Rachel said. They know we're here. How did they? Ariana stopped mid-sentence, her face paling. Julia must have told them about the panic room. Or they had the blueprints from day 1, Maya said quickly. Either way, they know. Rachel looked around the room. 1 door, no windows, no alternative exit, no weapons. They were trapped inside a metal coffin, waiting to be opened. On the screen, a mercenary placed a device on the basement door. They're planting explosives, Maya said, her voice heavy with terror. Rachel dialed 911. We're under attack. Whitmore property in Westchester. Multiple armed assailants with explosives. We need immediate support. Nearest unit is 3 minutes away, the operator said. Stay inside. 3 minutes. But the explosives would detonate in less than 1. Ariana squeezed Rachel's hand. If this is how it ends... It's not, Rachel interrupted. We've come too far. We don't end like this. Just as the device began to blink, Seconds before detonation, an unexpected image appeared on the monitors. Police cars. And then more police cars. Then SWAT armored trucks. Not one or two, but almost an entire strike force. The mercenaries, upon invading the property, also saw it. They stopped, exchanged hand signals, then retreated, disappearing as quickly as they arrived, leaving the explosive behind, still not triggered. "They're running!" Maya almost shouted in disbelief. 10 minutes later, SWAT secured the property, disarmed the device, and verified all structures. When the panic room door finally opened, Rachel, Ariana, and Maya emerged, faces pale but alive. A tall woman, wearing an FBI jacket, waited with her badge partially visible. "Agent Blake Hollister. Miss Whitmore, Mrs. Bennett, I'm glad you're safe," she said. Ariana immediately asked, "How did you get here so fast?" "We've been monitoring Gregory Vance and his associates for weeks," Hollister said. "When a taxi driver reported transporting a woman matching Julia Foster's description toward the Canadian border, we knew something serious had happened and immediately sent a team." "Is she safe?" Ariana asked quietly. "Julia is under protective custody in Canada," Hollister said, "and she agreed to testify in exchange for immunity." Rachel exhaled, relieved, feeling the weight of years leaving her chest. "So we have enough to take them down." "More than enough," Hollister responded, with a thin, controlled smile forming. "We arrested Gregory Vance, 3 Atlantic Energy executives, and 6 other accomplices in the last hour. With the data from his phone, Foster's testimony, and this attack." She straightened, her voice firm. "They're going to prison for a very, very long time." The next morning, when Rachel entered the courthouse, the atmosphere had completely changed. There were no more curious looks treating her as a novelty. What replaced them was silent respect. Reporters murmured. Even the prosecutors looked exhausted, as if they had just come out of a battle they knew they could never win. Judge Margaret Ross was assigned after Judge Fisher recused herself due to a conflict of interest. She struck the gavel to open the session. "I'm aware that there were significant developments overnight," she said. Prosecutor Catherine Morrison stood up, her shoulders almost sagging. "Your Honor, in view of the new arrests and the evidence presented this morning, the prosecution requests dismissal of all charges against Miss Whitmore." The courtroom exploded in celebration. Reporters shouted. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Rachel remained seated, watching Morrison with a strange sense of compassion. She too had been a piece in a game much larger than she could have understood. "Motion granted," declared Judge Ross. "Miss Whitmore, you are free to go." She paused, her eyes fixed on Rachel. "Mrs. Bennett, this court has never witnessed such a remarkable act in pursuit of justice. You deserve all the recognition that will follow." As they left the courthouse, Ariana turned to Rachel with tears shining in her eyes. "We did it. We really won." "You won," Rachel said gently. "You never gave up, not even when everything seemed lost." Maya hugged them, wrapping them both, breaking the solemnity. "No, we won as a team." 2 months later, Rachel stood in front of a building on 5th Avenue, looking at the newly installed sign, Bennett and Bennett Law, Anti-Discrimination and Civil Rights. Maya was beside her, holding a brand new law book. After everything she witnessed, she enrolled in law school, a decision born directly from the trial that changed their lives. "Do you think we can really run this place?" Maya asked. "We can," Rachel said. "We already have our first 3 clients. All those who were rejected because they couldn't afford to hire a lawyer." Maya smiled. Thanks to the Whitmore Legal Justice Fund, Ariana not only founded the fund with an initial contribution of $15 million. She got the support of CEOs of tech companies across the sector, who closely followed the trial. The fund would sponsor civil rights cases throughout America. As soon as they entered the still empty office, Rachel heard the sound of high heels behind her. Ariana stood in the doorway, holding a bottle of champagne. "I thought we should celebrate a little," she said, her warm smile lighting up the empty room. Maya understood immediately. "I'll go look for some glasses. Might take a while." Then she withdrew, leaving Rachel and Ariana alone in the silent office. They stood side by side in the unfinished room, wrapped in the peace that follows the storm. "I never thanked you as I should have," Ariana said quietly, "for being there that day, for believing in me when everyone else turned their backs." "There's nothing to thank," Rachel responded. "You gave me something I thought I had lost forever. A purpose." Over the last 2 months, through investigations, press conferences, and work for the foundation, something had changed between them. It started with respect, then friendship, and now, here they were, in the soft afternoon light coming through the windows. It had transformed into something deeper. "Rachel," she said, calling her by her first name for the first time. "I know we come from 2 different worlds. I know people are going to talk. But I realized that the only thing that really matters is—" "What's that?" she asked quietly. "The world doesn't matter. Other people's opinions don't matter. What matters is finding someone who understands you, who stands by your side, and who makes you a better version of yourself." She paused and continued in a whisper. "And I found that in you." Rachel's heart stopped beating. Since Jennifer died 15 years ago, she never allowed herself to love again. She buried the pain. She buried the hope. She buried the idea that she deserved another chance. But Ariana, who had seen beyond the janitor's uniform, had believed in her, had broken through all barriers. "I live a completely different life," Rachel said quietly. "I have nothing but integrity." "And courage," Ariana interrupted gently. "And kindness, and a heart that knows how to fight for what's right." She touched Rachel's hand. "I had money and success. What I didn't have was someone who saw me as a human being." Rachel looked at their hands. One soft, one rough. Different, but fitting with an impossible ease. "Jennifer was the love of my youth," she said. "I thought that part of my life was over." "But," Ariana asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Maybe we're given more than one chance," Rachel said, "if we're brave enough to accept it." They remained there in a silence so gentle it seemed the world had stopped. Then, Rachel leaned in slowly. Careful. Tender. The kiss was a promise, from 2 people who had been broken, who had lost so much, but still found courage to hope again. Maya's voice suddenly echoed from the back room. "I can't find any glasses. Maybe we need to buy some." Rachel and Ariana laughed, the intimate moment dissolving into a welcoming tranquility. "Come on," Ariana said, taking Rachel's hand. "Let's show your daughter the new office, and maybe tonight the 3 of us can go out to dinner." "I'd like that," Rachel said. Before leaving, she stopped at the door, looking once more at the sign. Bennett and Bennett Law. A new beginning. A second chance. No, she corrected herself silently. A second life. Rachel Bennett's story reminds us that it's never too late to start over. That justice is not measured by wealth or status, but by courage and the unwavering will to fight. That heroes emerge in many forms, sometimes wearing cleaning gloves instead of a tailored suit. She shows us that failure is not the end, that betrayal can be overcome, and that even after the deepest losses, love can still find its way back. And most importantly, Rachel proves that each of us has the power to stand up, speak out, and fight for what is right, no matter who tries to silence us. If you were in Rachel's place, what would you choose? A stable job at a large company with a high salary, or starting a new path to defend those who have no voice? Share your answer below. And if this story of perseverance and justice moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe, so you won't miss the next extraordinary stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that one person standing up for what's right can change the world. Thanks for watching. I will defend her. Remember, justice doesn't always wear an expensive suit, and love can bloom in the most unexpected places. Never lose hope. Never stop fighting. And never underestimate the power of a good person with the courage to stand firm.